Okay, we are recording. Lachlan, how are you today?
I'm feeling a little bit crook, but I think I'm on the mend.
Okay. Well, look, I'm going to try and make this as an enjoyable experience to lift you from your crookness, mate. So,
Yeah, that's good.
whereabouts are you today?
I'm in Sydney.
Lovely, lovely. So it's
Yeah.
late for you. It's early for us. So let's make this a really nice, pleasant, chilled conversation. It'll be nice and easy. I'm going to be gentle with you. I'm going to start
hmm
always with the song that you regard as having the greatest ever intro, please.
Um, what came to mind first was "Smells Like Teen Spirit."
Hmm.
That just like as soon as you hear that, just that one ding ding, like you know it, you know. And
Yeah,
then when it kicks in, it just like annihilates you. The drum fill right into the big riff.
it's
Yeah, it's just like hard to
um,
do that.
it's absolutely. I was really lucky. About 2 years ago, I got to interview Butch Vig on here, and
Mm,
and he chose this as the intro, and I thought, well, why wouldn't you? You produced this, and I went, tell me
mm,
what that was like. That moment. And he described that intro that you've just said there as when them drums come in, it felt like the studio was crashing down on top of everyone. He said it was just a fucking assault of just this
mm.
barrage of noise. And if I'm right, I mean, obviously I didn't say this to him, but from what I gather, like in hindsight, I think Kurt wasn't overly thrilled with the production on
Mm.
Nevermind. I believe. I think he thought it was a little bit too too much sheen on it and a bit too pop. I think he preferred the sort of Albini sound. I don't
Yeah,
know,
yeah, yeah.
like that.
I think I, I think I've read about that. Yeah, a bit too polished, but it sounds amazing.
Yeah,
You know.
absolutely amazing. And that even as an album, it doesn't. It could come out tomorrow and it still sounds as
Mm,
fresh as it did in
yeah.
'91. It's incredible record, incredible.
Mm,
Like when you're making music and you're, it's essentially I want to talk about the intro now because
hmm
the music industry is a fiercely competitive place and everybody's vying for listens on these playlists on Spotify and all trying to get ahead of the crowd and get into people's ears. These things like that kind of current trends in how the younger generations are consuming music via things like TikTok and these Spotify playlists and having to trying to hook you within sort of 5 seconds. Does any of that filter through into your creative process?
me personally, I try not to let that kind of thing affect the song, but I understand it is important. But like the other guys are more like, oh, we need to like make it crack on a bit quicker. Whereas like I like a good long song, you know. So we try and meet halfway every now and then. But like for instance, on the first track on the album coming out, it's like a long drawn out intro which I wrote because I just want like a big slow build up with like a lot of hand claps and stuff. And I was like, it really works, but like, yeah, I'm not really into the short pop stuff, you know.
Mm. I don't think there's a right or wrong answer for that question. I do
Mm,
think it is. You're right. It is more the commercial pop end of the market that are sort of trying to do these 2 minute scientifically put together pop
yeah.
moments. Do you know what I mean? That
Mm,
and I think that the problem with things like that can be that if you're going for this kind of fashionable trend in music, doesn't live very long. And I think we've
no.
just we've
Yeah.
just discussed Nirvana, and it's that style, isn't it, that outlives the
Mm.
fashion.
Go a flash in the pan, so to speak.
Absolutely,
Um,
absolutely. I'm going to take you
yeah.
back.
Yep.
Sorry, so we got a little bit of a delay there. That
No,
was
go,
all.
no, go.
Uh, I'm going to ask you. I'm going to take you back a little bit now. I'm going to ask you to tell me the first song that you remember hearing that had an emotional impact on you, please.
um, it's got to be a Radiohead song from OK Computer, Exit Music.
Oh,
Because growing up, I was actually pretty lucky to be surrounded by good music, whereas like my dad would play a lot of like, Frank Zappa, King Crimson, PJ Harvey, Nick Cave and stuff. Whereas my older brother would introduce me to like Nirvana, Sonic Youth, and stuff like that. So and Radiohead. So I was quite lucky to be like, oh, what's this? And to the point where it took me a while to actually discover a band on my own. That was kind of thrown at me, and it was all great.
Aside from I mean, you've just listed a hell of a lot of incredible bands to be brought up, surrounded by. Aside from that record collection at home, was there instruments laying about? Was it a musical house?
My brother played guitar and drums, and my dad not so much, but my grandpa played like clarinet and saxophone and stuff like that. So there's always music being played because my dad just loved it.
Yeah.
Which I think helped like grow my taste for, playing music and whatnot.
And was growing up in Sydney?
No, I grew up in Melbourne, like in
Right.
the eastern suburbs. Yeah.
Okay. Fond memories of growing up there?
Yeah. I had three brothers. Started playing gigs when I was like in high school, which is pretty funny. My dad would drive me in and be my roadie and then wait around till, 1 a.m. and drive us home. It's very fortunate to have such a supportive dad who was just into it as much as I was.
Yeah. Tell me about the impact and pinpoint the actual emotion that you got from hearing Exit music. And how old would you have been when you got introduced to Radiohead?
I would have been like, I don't know, 7 or 8.
Fucking hell, that's intense music.
I know. That's pretty ridiculous, hey. Hence, like, obviously I wasn't quite all like understanding of it, but I knew that it was like, okay, it doesn't always have to be heavy, loud, rock kind of music. It can be like pretty, But now that I think about it, it is crazy that I was that age listening to these kind of bands.
That's also my favorite track on OK Computer. It's just a kind of echo on it, and then when them sort of, are they like a kettle drum? I don't know what the sort of big drum is that sort of rolls in that chorus that just creeps up on you, and like it's so claustrophobic sounding, that record. It's a powerful bit of music, isn't it?
Yeah, and the strings coming at the end, and you're just like, how do you write something so dark and beautiful,
Yeah, wonderful. You mentioned school, so let's discuss that. So for track 3, Lachlan, I'm going to ask you please to tell me the song that reminds you of your time at school, please.
Okay, yeah, I went to like a senior high school, like that focused on music as well as like sports, but I was into the music crowd. But I remember having a Discman that I would play on the way to school. It took me like half an hour or 40 minutes to get to school from where I was, and I would always play Faith No More, King for a Day, Fool for a Lifetime, and just like I'd get home just as the record would finish, and it was just like that whole album is like such an amazing album. But yeah, one of the particular songs is like Digging the Grave. It's just like so insane, like Mike Patton. It's like an absolute crazy genius. But like, and like all the riffs on that album, it's like, wow, this is crazy. And it's so dynamic as well. Like there's like a funk on it, But I just remembered always popping that in my little Discman and hoping it wouldn't skip because all the scratches on the disc,
Yeah. And the things with Discman, you had to sort of literally hold it flat as well. Like otherwise it wasn't a convenient bit of kit to carry around.
They did have the like anti-skip button, but it just never worked. And you'd try and put it in your pocket, but it would just and you're like, oh, it's an idiot walking around this giant thing. These days it's like your phone,
Absolutely. I mean,
like kids don't realize how lucky they've got it these days, mate.
Exactly. I mean, let's just talk about the genius that he's Faith No More and Mike Patton. I mean, you talk about crazy genius. I mean, you've only got to listen to Mr. Bungle and stuff like that to realise that he's crazy is definitely an integral part of that man. But I honestly believe that he is. I mean, we've just spoke about Radiohead, and Tom York's got such a unique and an incredible voice. But Mike Patton's voice is
Mm,
ridiculous. It's so good.
yeah.
It's so powerful. And digging, he can go from like, if you look at it, even if you sort of go back to sort of Angel Dust and stuff like that, or even, stuff like Epic, where he can just
Mm.
bark it and then he can just hit this huge notes, this huge melody. His voice has got such range and one of the most incredible frontmen. I mean, I saw Faith No More in 93 maybe. I've
Oof.
not seen many
Lucky.
bands. I've not seen. I'm well old, so yeah. I was lucky to have seen them back then, and I don't think I'm hard pushed to find bands that have ever topped Mike Patton's performance live at that point.
Mm.
It was absolutely insane.
I saw him perform with Tomahawk. Have you
Yeah,
heard much of them? That
yeah,
stuff.
yeah,
And
yeah,
that's just like, yeah, seeing him just like do his thing and it's like so much energy in
yeah,
that person, It's crazy.
yeah,
So impressive. That's why like you see things like that and you go, man, I need to try and get that much energy. Like I'll be happy if I can get half of that energy at my show.
absolutely. Tell me a little about school. How was it? Did you enjoy it?
Um, it was good. Like once when I was up into year 10 to 12, that's when I went to the music kind of focused school and actually had like a recording studio there. So I'll just spend all my time, most of my time in the recording studio, like jamming and drumming and, just messing around. And then I would do more of that than the actual schoolwork. So I think that turned out okay. I mean, I'm doing it full
Absolutely.
time now. So you know. And I didn't really go on to study that further at like university or anything because I thought I didn't really need to do that to
Yeah.
be able to write songs. I feel like the less I knew, the better for me.
Was there any ever Was there ever any sort of question as to what you wanted to do when you finished school? Was music always the focus?
I think it was always a focus, even from a young age. My mum and dad would give me like a little tiny electrode like drum pad when I was like maybe 5 or something, and then like a toy guitar. So there's always stuff laying around the house. So like my brother would get a guitar and I'd like, grab that and try and learn how to do it. So yeah, it was always kind of in the back of my head.
And growing up going, was you at Melbourne when you was at school?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Just out
Yeah.
out in the suburbs. Yeah.
Did it seem did it seem like living there at that point that you could make a career in music, or did it ever sort of, I know when I speak to lots of guests in the UK, they always feel the desire that to kind of have success in music, they felt the need to have to relocate to London. Did it ever feel like you needed to sort of move to Sydney, to pursue music? Did it feel like there was more of a scene there? And like, what inspirations were there in Melbourne for you as a musician as well that made you think, yeah, we can do this?
I never thought that far ahead to say, oh, I can actually do this. But I know that other guys, Shane and Cy, they actually relocated to Berlin a few, like years ago, and they tried to do the whole, move to Europe kind of thing and base themselves there, but like just too hard. I think it might be a little bit easier to make it in Australia because we're such a smaller country over a huge space. Like if you think of like Perth, you only need to think about a few good bands there that kind of blow up in Perth, and that gets the overseas market interested because there's like, oh, what are these bands doing over in Perth? Whereas like in Melbourne and Sydney, there's just so many bands, it's hard to kind of stand out a bit.
Yeah, yeah. Tell me the first record you remember buying from a record store.
Okay, I've got a story about this. You might
Wonderful.
like it. Uh, well, there's a festival in Australia. There's a festival called Big Day Out, and I think it was 2004, and Metallica headlined. And I went there. I would have been, I don't know, in high school still. I went there. It's like, Kings of Leon, The Strokes, all these great bands at the time that are now huge. And then I went home and then I saw this video clip on TV. It was Hysteria by Muse. And I was like, oh, this band's amazing. And then I found out like later on that they actually played that festival and I just didn't see them. So that was one of the first records I bought was Absolution. But then I bought all the other ones as well because I just kind of like became obsessed because they were one of the first bands that I actually discovered on my own. So
Yeah.
they kind of have a little special place in my heart, you know. And I was just blown away by all the riffs that they have and like the production on that album as well.
And they'll blow you
Crazy.
away live. They're
Yeah,
just
I've seen them like twice. It's like how do three
insane, isn't
people
it?
make? Yeah, so impressive. And I was like, man, I wish we could do that.
Yeah, again, I saw them very early on, and in the
Mm,
UK, and I remember when they first come out with that with the first record, you're hearing like Muscle Museum and Sunburn and stuff, and I was like, it sounds a bit Radioheady, and like, and
mm,
I think sort of initially, like even some of the British sort of music press were like, yeah, they're just they're just another one of these bands that wants to be Radiohead, and then I think they dropped the second record and they're like, oh, hang on a minute, this band's
yeah.
different level, and then they've just gone on to create their own sound, really. Like they no
Mm,
one really sounds like Muse, do they? It's like it's absolute balls out rock, but it's kind of quite proggy as well. It's like it's all over the place, and obviously that
yeah.
falsetto
Yeah. Yeah.
vocal as well. It's a crazy sound.
Mm. And then like out of nowhere, crazy piano solos and
Yeah,
dub.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
it's crazy. Yeah, it's really great because like we like you see bands like that and it's like we don't want to be stuck in one genre. So we try
mm.
and just explore with every album and just do different things each time, which is I think kind of healthy.
I mean, you've mentioned so many bands. Like if we to look at right early on, you said your dad was playing your sort of Nick Cave records, and then you've just been speaking about Mike Patton, and now we're talking about Muse. Like these are all absolutely iconic frontmen of bands. Like such performance. The drama in what Nick Cave does, the power in what Patton does, and just the theatrics and just bombasticness of Muse. Like, how much kind of do you draw from that for your sort of performances and what you do as a band?
Um, yeah, try and make every show high energy regardless of the show.
Yeah,
Because the people that are there, they paid to see you, so you have to, give them 110%, as they say.
yeah,
But yeah, it's always important to just, unleash your inner Mike Patton and go a bit crazy.
yeah. Always, always.
Mm,
I want to know what song for track 5 soundtracked your year's clubbing.
okay. I know I listed a few bands here, because when I started gigging, I was just kind of out of high school, so I was going to the clubs and playing clubs like that. And then it was like the era of like your Interpol, Block Party, Strokes, Hives, and yeahs. But yeah, if I had to pick one that kind of stood out, maybe like New York, like NYC by Interpol,
Oh,
real slow, like New York cares. It's tough. I was like, this, I can't. Took me a while to kind of just go, okay, I'll just pick that one. But yeah, it's such a great band, and I
such
managed
a
to see
great
them
band.
around that time, and they're like, they were just killing it,
Was that when they
and it was
still
like
had
such an amazing gig.
Carlos?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then I saw Block Party when they just put out a weekend in the city, and they were like just at the top of their game, and it was just
Yeah.
like crazy, so amazing. Yeah, it's great to see.
That was an incredible time
Um,
for alternative music. That all of the stuff that was happening in New York with like the Yeah Yeah Yeahs and LCD Sound System and Interpol, and like you say, then there was just the energy of I can't. It was a little bit sort of post Strokes, really, wasn't it? And but you would get
mm.
the Hives. I mean, I literally saw the video to the new Hive single last week, and
Oh, it's amazing, isn't it?
it's so good, isn't it? It's so good,
Yeah,
and what a
that's
band!
another great front man too.
Oh
Yeah.
my god, ridiculous! So cool as well.
Uh, unstoppable.
I mean, tell me a little bit about is your sort of love of Interpol something that's that's moved on beyond Bright Lights, the first record is have they become a band that you're always intrigued as to what they're going to put out?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I've been listening since that album. It's always good
Yeah,
to kind of reference certain sounds and stuff they come up with. And
yeah,
yeah, it's, just because a person left the band doesn't mean that, their songwriting is going to get too terrible.
Absolutely. I think Daniel's an incredibly underrated guitar player. I think his guitar style's phenomenal, and I was lucky to interview him a few years ago during lockdown about the record they were just about to put out. And completely unbeknown to me, he was born in the UK, grew up in the UK. I just presumed he was this super cool New Yorker, but no, grew up on the outskirts of London listening to the Jam. I was like, wow, I did not know that.
For
But
some
yeah,
reason, I thought he was French.
he lives in, I think he lives in France now.
Okay.
But yeah, grew up kind of. I think he's a bit nomadic, but yeah, but no, you're not taking that
But
from me, man. We're claiming him now.
it's all right. My dad was born in the UK, so you can claim him too.
Fantastic. We're having him as well. But the
But
best one.
also
Go on. Sorry.
sorry.
No, go on. Sorry, Lachlan.
Paul Banks's voice is
Oh,
like there's nothing else like it.
yeah,
You know,
yeah. I got
like
to.
I can't think of any other band that has that. You know.
Yeah, yeah. I saw them. Seen them a fair few times. I saw them a little while ago supporting the Cure in Hyde Park in London, and you just forget. I mean, they closed with Not Even Jowl, and his voice on that, fucking hell, what a record that is as well. Like, yeah, it's weird seeing them. They were on in the afternoon, and it's like it feels like when you see Interpol, it's got to be dark, and it was quite weird.
Yeah.
It's in a sunny afternoon. It was one of the hottest days of the year, and that like I say, of supporting the Cure, that was not the right weather for a load of aging goths going out to watch the Cure. They all just looked like melted candles. It was it was the wrong weather for a big gothy all dayer. But Interpol took the roof off. Absolutely. Right.
Goths in the sun.
That's a great name
This
for a
doesn't
record.
work. Yeah. That can be their live album.
Like, then tell me a favourite song from an artist from your home county, please.
It's got to be a song from Amyl and the Sniffers, who
Yeah,
have just taken over the world. Guided by Angels. Like, there's a few songs on that album that are really good, but that one kind of stood out for me.
yeah, yeah. What a band.
But like, and speaking of front people, Amy Taylor,
Yeah,
absolute amazing performer.
I would say potentially the most exciting front person on the planet right now.
Have you seen them?
I haven't seen them live, no. Obviously, I've seen loads of footage of them playing live, and fantastic band.
I think that's another band that you want to see in like a dirty nightclub, just to get the vibe,
Yeah.
sweat and beer everywhere. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you see like footage of them overseas doing like festivals in the day, and it's like, I mean, it doesn't really translate to what they're, about.
Yeah. She done a track with Sleaford Mods, which I don't know if you've heard that. And they're super exciting UK band at the moment. And yeah, it's just I think anything she seems to be on at the moment just seems to sort of certainly set the indie press on fire. I think she's there's a lot of attention and love for her and the band, of course.
Yeah. She also did a song with Viagra Boys too, which is another good one. Yeah. So good. It's like, oh man, just doing all this cool stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's so good.
So what's happening sort of scene wise in I know you're in Sydney now. Does it feel that, like, because in the UK it's really hard to kind of, I mean, like, I'm a 50-year-old man, so I'm probably not down with the kids, but I do run a venue, and I try and sort of keep my finger on the pulse of, like, scenes that are happening. But it feels that in the UK that it's certainly very tough for bands to get exposure.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, it goes back to what we were saying about the sort of influx of these, of trying to get ahead of the game and getting noticed on these like playlists and things like that. And it certainly feels like the industry, the working class bands can't afford to be working class bands anymore. And it's bands like And I know you mentioned them earlier, but bands like Muse that have come from financially secure backgrounds that can afford to, gig hard and not have to worry about getting jobs and things like that as they're coming through.
Yeah.
What's the scene like in Sydney for young and exciting bands? Does it feel that like there's still huge desire and encouragement for aspiring working class bands?
Yeah, but it's also very hard here, in not even in Sydney, like all of Australia. Like as you said, like how do you write music while working 9 to 5? 5 days a week. It's just like pretty hard to do. But we've got it. We recently got a new prime minister and government that actually care about the arts. So we actually have an arts minister now, as opposed to having one that was kind of blended into 3 different random things.
Yeah.
So hopefully we see a bit more like grant and funding for upcoming artists, so they can go overseas and stuff like that. There's actually another group called Sounds Australia, who they like their whole thing is like export, so they'll host gigs during the Great Escape and things like that, like South by Southwest, and like help bands come over and showcase them. So we've got things like that, but like the average musician doesn't really get that much help, so it's kind of a bit of a struggle, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. My brother lives in Australia, and he runs a live venue, and
Oh,
he run
whereabouts?
it's called the Hoey Moey, and
Oh, we're actually playing there next week.
are you doing the all dayer?
Yeah. We're playing next Saturday. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. My brother Dan runs that, and
Oh, awesome.
yeah.
That's
So
good to
say
know.
hello to him.
Yeah, we'll do.
Yeah, and it's he's constantly sending me exciting sort of young Aussie bands over. So check this one out, check this one out, and we just sort of play sort of band tennis, just sort of firing them back and forth. Oh, that's fantastic! You're playing this venue, amazing.
What are the odds, eh?
That's pretty crazy, that. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, wonderful. Oh, well, look, I'll tell you what. It's your last track, and for that, Lachlan, I'm going to ask you, please, to tell me a song that you think many people may not know that you would like them to hear.
Okay, it's a band from Newcastle in Australia, not UK, called Dust, and the song is called Gutter. They're kind of like a post-punky, kind of idol style band, but they have a saxophone player. So I remember seeing them live a few weeks ago, and like in between songs, he would just let it rip, and like heaps of reverb on the sax, and you felt like you're in like a weird kind of sci-fi 80s action film, having the sax blaring while everyone's kind of like gets their shit together, and they just go back into another song. It's really cool.
Oh, wicked.
Dust, Dust.
Well, luckily, we make it really easy for people to go and check that out because we put together a little Spotify playlist to accompany the podcast. So we'll put all your song choices on there, and all the songs that we've spoken about on today's chat. And obviously, we'll put your music on there as well. And so, with that in mind, what's happening with the band? What's going on? Apart from playing the Hoey Moey next weekend, what's happening?
Oh yeah. We're actually releasing an album tomorrow, called RIFF, which stands for Remember It's for Fun, which is a little system we use when we're on the road when the show looks like it's going to be a bit shit. We just go, all right, we're going to use the riff system, just have fun with it, get drunk or whatever. And it actually has saved us a few times. So
Love that.
yeah, it's a good system to use. That comes out tomorrow, and then we have an Australia tour from like the end of July till September, and hopefully we can make it back to the UK and EU because it's been far too long.
Yeah.
So we'll try and hook that up maybe late this year, next year.
Fantastic.
And yeah, that's it. And then get to writing again. We want to put out some more music by the end of the year. So we'll see what happens.
And if people want to keep up to speed with everything that's going on with the band, where's the best place?
DZDeathrays.com. Or you can just follow our socials like Instagram, Facebook.
Cool.
Yeah, all the usual places.
Lovely. If it's all right with you, we'll tag you in this when it comes out. So if people aren't following you already, then we make it nice and easy for them to go and do so.
Awesome.
Wonderful. Lachlan, best of luck with the record. Enjoy the tour. Say hello to my little brother for me, and have a wonderful day. I'm going to press stop. Don't go anywhere.
Okay.